So the question is whether the Trump Justice Department in 2025 can bring legal action against Nancy Pelosi and other Democratic leaders over their role in forcing Joe Biden out of the presidential race. That's one for the experts. I mean, if I had to hazard, don't quote me on any of this. I'm not an expert on any of this, but it seems like there's something called conspiracy against rights, and I've heard a lot of Trump, Trump allies, Trump leaning pundits talking about conspiracy against rights quite a bit since he won. And I suspect that this is going to be something we hear a lot about starting in 2025 when Trump and his allies exact their revenge against the Democrats and, against anybody who crossed Trump since his exit from office in 2020. And so it's Section 241 of Title 18 of the U.S. Code. It's called Conspiracy Against Right. It's a statute, and it criminalizes any conspiracy to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate any person in the free exercise of rights secured by the Constitution, including the right to vote and presumably the right to run for political office, right? And so, the Justice Department has shown that it's willing um, to sentence individuals, or to pursue, I should say, individuals on this statute, conspiracy against rights, because they did it in like 2023. They sentenced some people they prosecuted some people under this statute. And, you know, I've heard so many talks about, what they are going to expect the Trump, pundits, people on YouTube, people on social media are talking about all the things they expect the Trump White House to do, his Justice Department, etc., in terms of bringing all of the Democratic leaders. I've even heard of them saying they're going to impeach Kamala Harris. I haven't yet figured out what the basis of that would look like, but I saw that this morning, actually. I don't remember what channel it was, but they were talking about impeaching Kamala Harris. I know they tried to impeach Joe Biden. I know Trump was impeached twice. So they're going to try to impeach people. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to impeach Obama as well. But we have to wait to hear what the actual charges would be. I don't think they could successfully bring a conspiracy against rights suit against Nancy and the other Democratic leaders, because it would be hard to prove that it was a conspiracy to hurt the Democratic voters, right? Because they're going to argue that it was political strategizing, right? It's political strategizing. Our guy was old. He's not performing well. We asked him to get out so that we can put somebody else in to improve our chances of winning. And legally, we are allowed to strategize, right, for our political party and to get the best candidate before the electorate. And we were not trying to hurt the voters or even hurt Biden. We were not trying to harm his constitutional rights. Um, the point, though, is that the Justice Department could bring the case anyway and just have it go on and on and on for a really long time. And that alone is enough revenge, I think, even if ultimately they don't win. So I do worry about it a little bit, because, Nancy Pelosi's comments in this interview with the New York Times, that had President Biden gotten out sooner, there may have been other candidates in the race. But she said that Biden's endorsement of Kamala Harris really made it almost impossible to have a primary. It could obviously show that she she admitted that they exerted pressure on Biden to leave so that all of them could push Kamala Harris forward without a primary, without allowing the voters their constitutional choice of choosing who they want to represent them in this federal election, and so on and so forth. So they could make I think, a federal case of it. I just don't think that it would work, just because nothing that they did was meant to oppress voters or threaten or intimidate or injure voters, right? Um, Clearly, American voters, Democratic voters, they have a right to meaningful choice in a primary, but there was not enough time because, as Nancy said, Joe Biden exited too late. And so, you know, it's unfortunate, but it doesn't prove that there's been a conspiracy against the rights of voters or even a conspiracy against the rights of Joe Biden. But don't hold your breath, you guys, and don't listen to anything I say in this podcast is just me talking out of my you know what, okay? People come on and they're like, "Oh, you're just talking out of your you know what, and you just like the sound of your own voice and this, that, and the third." I mean, I'm just talking. I mean, it's just my channel. You don't want to listen, you don't want to listen, but it's just my opinion. I'm just talking, but don't quote me. I'm not saying I'm an expert. I don't know anything politically. I'm a novice. I am, you see my life. If you've been following my YouTube channel for a long time, you see what I do. But this is very intriguing to me for many different reasons. So I'm kind of just like looking at things and listening to things and trying to understand things. And so that's why I'm talking about this. But it doesn't mean that any of this is even remotely sensical. Okay. I'm just saying what I heard people talking about, this whole conspiracy against rights. It sounds like a catchphrase. I expect to hear a lot more about this conspiracy against rights, conspiracy against rights. I feel it in my bones. I have an omen that they're going to go after the Democratic leaders like Nancy Pelosi on this particular point, using this section to try to throw her in prison for a little while. I think she can get up to 10 years if she's convicted of this in a federal court. And yeah, you know, but, again, I think that ultimately, while the DOJ could, theoretically investigate this, maybe even bring the case, I think that proving that Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic leaders committed a conspiracy against rights under Section 241 would be really difficult, right? I think political strategy, such as what Nancy and the others did, like asking Joe to leave, it's not that unusual. I mean, it's a normal thing, right? It's a typical thing. And so unless there is compelling evidence of something that went on behind the scenes that the public is not privy to at this point, that would clearly show that it was a coordinated effort to suppress someone's choice, to suppress the voters' choice or even to suppress Joe Biden's rights, to continue to be the candidate, or, to stop voters from having that choice. Like I said, to suppress voters' choice, then I think that it would not, the case would not be decided in favor of the Trump, the Trump Justice Department. But as I'm talking, I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, the courts that are going to be hearing this, the circuit courts, and then if there's an appeal, the U.S. Supreme Court, all of this is going to be conservative. It's all going to be Trump people sitting in there. And they, one thing I've noticed about judges and lawyers and the whole legal system is that they can really, twist words and, they can make a law mean just about anything. Anyway, that's all for this one. See you in the next one. Take care. Bye.